fictional friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
And I'm Shireen.
And it is Thriller Suspense Month.
Thriller.
Oh, nice. Very nice to just add that over here at Fully Booked. It's the month of June. It's like starting that like beach read season, all that stuff. And so we're spending the month talking about everything to do with thriller suspense novels, which I think are their own subcategory of mysteries at this point that like they shouldn't be generalized. I think they deserve their own spotlight.
Agree.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. And we're kind of kicking off our discussion portion of the month this week by talking about a bit of an amalgamation between beach reads and thrillers. So what makes kind of what we like about them and what makes a good beach thriller to read. Mm-hmm. You know, there are specific things, I think specific like kind of themes that you look for, a particular length of book that you look for, characters, all that kind of stuff that you're kind of searching for when you're looking for something to bring.
Story, structure,
that you're looking when you want to bring something with you on vacation. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to talk about all of that today. Mm-hmm. But before we do, Shireen, what's on your nightstand?
Well, I'm in a bit of a interesting situation here because I started reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Oh, you did?
And I'm about, I don't even know, 2/3 of the way through, maybe? Half. I don't know. I'm struggling. I'm struggling to get through it. And it's weird because, like, everybody, like, really loved this novel. And I was like, okay, yes. And I understand, like, you know, the social impact of it because I'm not going to give away any, like, spoilers. Yeah. But, like, you know, there's an interesting element to it that I didn't expect.
Okay.
And yeah, I think I just don't like her character, or I don't know, there's something about the characters that I just find I don't really care much about.
All right.
That I'm struggling to finish the story. So I am going to give it, you know, a good push to try and finish it maybe this weekend.
I mean, if you are like half to 2/3 the way through, when you cross a certain threshold, you're like, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to finish the book.
Finish it at this point because I have to know how it ends.
Yeah.
But like, I'm also like struggling to get through it. Whereas like somebody I know said that it's like her most favorite book ever. And I'm like, wow, okay. So, yeah.
But I mean, it's also different strokes for different folks. And unfortunately, I do think that there's like a bit of a curse when a book gets very popular where it jumps on this sort of hype train where you think that like it's going to be incredible. Yeah. And then sometimes when it's just a book, it's a little bit...
It's okay.
Yeah, like it's a little bit difficult to, you know, to push all the way through, I guess.
I think it's because I'm coming out of like A Court of Thorns and Roses, like that whole series where you get really attached to the characters. Mm-hmm. And like for this one, I'm just not, because it's one of those self-contained stories, you know, like everything happens within the story. So, you know, you don't get to know the characters all that well. So I was like, I'm like, yeah, I'll finish it. But I did buy a couple of books last week. One of them is, what's it called? Demon. It's supposed to be based on David Copperfield. But it's a new age way of writing it. It's called... Sorry. Please hold.
Hold, please.
Well, I can't remember. Anyway, it's like a modern version of David Copperfield, like about a boy who lives like on a in a trailer park, I think.
Okay.
And sorry, I'm trying to see. Demon Copperhead. That's
cute.
Yes. So I think he lives in a trailer park. And it's about, like, the struggles of, like, modern day, you know, poverty and what it means in this world and how to make your way. It's won a ton of prizes, so it's supposed to be really good. So I'm going to try that one next. But, yeah, what about you, Megan?
That's fun. Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. It's been, like, a few weeks since we recorded, so I guess I've gotten through, like, a few different books. I also read the first Court of Thorns and Roses. I didn't tell Shireen that I was doing, and now she's very excited.
I'm so excited. I'm like, oh, we can talk about this now.
She's very excited that I've read it. I also read the first book in the Mead Mishaps series, which are like I think there will be 3 books or something. Anyway, whatever. Called That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon.
Is this like one of your cozy ones?
Kind of. Yeah. It's a bit of like a cozy fantasy thing. So it's called That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. It was just fun. It's like a very short book, so I got through it incredibly quickly, but it was just funny, cute. The main character is a woman of color, which is fun, and she gets to like kind of lead everything in the story. And I have to give props to Kimberly Lemming, who's the author, because her follow-up novel is called That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf.
Stop it. I need to read these. This sounds hilarious.
And I was like, okay. There was like a lot more spicy in it than I thought there was going to be. Yeah, it's like a full-on romance novel, but in a fantasy world, basically. So I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Oh, that's spicy fantasy.
Yeah. But it was really a fun time. And I just finished yesterday or the day before when we're recording this episode, the second book in the Finley Donovan series. I'd read the first one last year, and I just read the second book called Finley Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. I'm like obsessed with this series. I've only read 2 of them so far. I know there's a third one that's out that I have to pick up, but it is hilarious. I'm pretty sure the first book was in my top 5 at the end of last year. Really just like funny mystery, like mystery through circumstance and unfortunate happenstance kind of book. It's hilarious. The main character is very funny. The overall premise of them to start off with, not as much in the second one, is that she is a single mother, recently divorced, who's an author. She's trying to write, but she, has writer's block. She's struggling. She's not getting it. She's out of money, and dealing with her shitty ex-husband and his new girlfriend. She is trying to write like basically like a romantic thriller, a romantic suspense of some kind. She meets up with her editor at like a Panera Bread to talk about the book, and they're discussing plot points about like, how would you write it like this? How would you murder this character and do all of these things, and discussing like the way to get away with it, like for like, her character to get away with doing it. Yeah. A woman in the Panera Bread overhears her, thinks she's an assassin, and offers her $50,000 to kill her husband.
Oh my God, this sounds great.
And then she's like, no. But it just devolves because of different things that happen. It just devolves into the most hilarious, like, sort of like series of events where like very severe, serious things start to happen. And she has no choice but to kind of deal with them with her nanny who's helping her with this. It's really funny. Okay. There's a hot cop. It's funny.
We're going to try it.
They're hilarious. I just read the second book and I think I even liked it better than the first one. It's just really funny. There's an entire conversation between the lead, Finley, and her nanny, Vero, about the fact that she's having trouble writing her book, like actually getting it down on paper and like coming up with any good ideas. And there's an entire suggestion that because she's having trouble with romantic suspense, she should let that fall by the wayside and write dinosaur porn. It's just like,
which also exists.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's what Vero's saying. She's like, yeah, it's really popular. And then goes on to basically physically demonstrate by like using little T-Rex arms. And it's great because there are many conversations like these that happen in these books, and they're just a really fun time, and I love that.
You need to like share more when you're like buying these books and finding them, because I just go off what's popular on Book Talk.
Yeah, I start with stuff like that, I think, to start me off, but then I have a tendency to do these deep dives into things.
You're much better at that than I am, because I just go with what's popular.
Yeah, I find myself like, I'll get specific things that I know that I'm like, I want to read this, but sometimes when I'm like fiddling through Book Outlet, I'll just like find covers, I'll find ideas for things in different genres that I'm like, oh, what's this one about? And I'll read the description and I'll be like, yep, fucking getting it, no problem. And I just like will pick them up at the same time, and they're incredible, and I'm happy to have been able to find them.
Yeah, you're really good at that, because I'm just like, all right, what's popular on Book Talk?
What's like, the most popular ones? And then everybody has like the same 7 choices.
It's true. Like, I think last summer I probably read most of what was popular on Book Talk.
Probably, yeah. Oh, God, have you guys heard that they're making Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us into a movie with Blake Lively?
Yeah, and apparently fans are not happy because there was like one picture of them on set, and they're like, that's not at all what I thought she was going to look like. I'm like, it was one picture. She might have been just like hanging out, like practicing her lines.
I have a thing with that too, where I don't care that much about that when they're adapting. I don't really care if they don't look like what I assume the character would look like, as much as I care if they're just good at it.
Yeah, and like, they got Blake Lively for a reason. Like, there's, they've got a very popular actress in these movies. Also, she just had baby number 4. Like, people were like putting comments out there and stuff, and I'm like, oh, don't do that.
Get fucked. If you're commenting anything about the way that she looks right now, I don't want to talk to you.
Oh yeah. So but like, we all know my opinion about Colleen Hoover.
Shreen's talked about it a couple of times, but boy, oh boy, there are entire sections at bookstores right now that are just all of her novels. Like, oh, Colleen Hoover, and it's a whole fucking table of Colleen Hoover books.
Table of it. It's like popular on Book Talk, and I'm like, oh, cool. And I walk over, and
all
it's
Colleen
an entire
Hoover.
table of Colleen Hoover, and I'm like, can we just stop?
Yeah, my fiance and I walked into a bookstore like a couple of weeks ago, and he's looking, and he's like, who the fuck is Colleen Hoover? Which, like, I appreciate that about him. He's like a sci-fi dystopian guy, so he really does not care what's going on in the romance side of the world. So he has no idea who it is. If it's not sci-fi or like sci-fi dystopian, he's reading Stephen King, and that's pretty much like his wheelhouse. Yep. So sometimes I love that because he has no idea what's popular, and I really appreciate that about him.
Yep, but no, I'm just really excited that you're reading these.
She's so excited.
Now I got like a friend to talk about my ACOTAR series with, so I'm sending Megan away with a care package of the rest of
the rest of the series, and eventually I'll get to them. But that's not what we're here to talk about today.
No,
we're here to talk about the perfect kinds of beach thrillers. So let's get into it. Let's dive into that a little bit. What do you like if you're going on vacation, like if you're going to the beach, if you're going to a resort, if you're going to a cottage, if you're going to whatever, anywhere, what do you like to bring with you, and why?
So, like, I was thinking about this when we talked about this being one of our discussions, and I think our listeners now have a pretty good flavor of what I like to read versus what Megan likes to read.
True.
And of course I would be the typical, like, romance, that kind of novel. But, when you think about a beach read, what I think is really important is that it's one of those easy to read, easy to consume in a very short period of time, self-contained with very
There's
lovable
a beginning,
characters.
middle, and end.
Yeah. With like very enamoring characters and like an interesting story, which again, it sounds like I'm asking for the world here, but there are quite a few of these books that are very good. And I would say when we went to Mexico in February, for the first time, I brought a thriller with me for my beach reads, because I also had like, loaded up with my typical Nicholas Sparks and like all that other stuff that I would read. And I found myself getting a little bored of Nicholas Sparks. I was like, this is fine, but like, whatevs. And so I picked up a Harlan Coben book.
Yes. Harlan Coben's pretty big in that thriller world. I think we've talked about him a little bit before because, his stuff's been adapted into like 7 different Netflix series at this point. So
yeah, and I gotta give it to him. What I like about Harlan Coben is that there's always like a love aspect fueling the mystery.
True.
And it's, again, very self-contained, interesting twists and turns, good characters, and a good self-contained plot. Like, at the end of the book, it's all tied up and we have a nice little bow, and I sat by the beach all day and I delved into a different world.
For sure.
And then at the end, like, okay, I'm done now,
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't bring like Sarah Moss to the beach.
You
could,
and you know what? I think if people like that, that's cool. But like the idea of like high fantasy when I'm on a beach vacation isn't really something that appeals to me.
No, it's too big.
Yes.
You got to put a lot of not effort, but like it consumes you a lot. And I find that when I'm on a beach vacation, like I'm reading for a bit, and then it's okay, I'm going to stand up and go jump in the water for a bit, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to go get some food. I'm going to come back.
I'm going to get a drink. I'm going to get whatever, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to probably chat with whoever I'm with, those sorts of things, so like, and it's just easy to kind of, anything that, like, a lot of those thrillers are so great because it's easy to like pick them up but also drop them, and then when you pick them up again, you don't have to be like, oh fuck, okay, what was going on in this?
Like, it's not like already a giant battle of the 5 armies happening.
No, you pick it up, you read a paragraph, and you're like, right, okay, and you just kind of like, you roll back on through it, and there are specific types of books. And I think now especially, like, there are a lot of authors that are really hyper focused on those types of thrillers, and that they make for like just really good beach reads in general overall. Because like if you look at like, okay, so I'm trying to think of like who I'm thinking of right now, but people like Lucy Foley. So if you guys have read something like The Guest List, or like I think The Paris Apartment is another one of hers and stuff. Rachel Hawkins is another one whose name comes to mind. Riley Sager, I love his books. I've read like most of them at this point. Jennifer Hillier, she's another one who's up there. Ruth Ware, like they're like, you know, like when you go to the bookstore. Lisa Jewell's another one. There are like specific authors who like you see they've got, first of all, most of these people, boy, can they crank those fucking books out. They've got like 15 at least. It's incredible.
Like even like, again, I go back to Harlan Coben. I was looking on the bookshelf like at my local bookstore the other day, and I'm like, holy shit, this guy wrote a lot of books.
It's absurd. I think that I don't know, and if somebody is aware of this, like tell me, but I think that thriller suspense authors, like people who are really focused in that kind of genre, I'm pretty sure that for amount of publishing and publications that they do, they're probably just second under romance authors.
Oh, definitely.
Because romance authors are ridiculous. Like it's incredible. They can
crank them out like nobody's business.
Yeah, like if I actually looked into the number of books that Nora Roberts has written, I don't think I'd ever stop reading them, right?
I mean, look at Nicholas Sparks.
Yeah.
I mean, again, so I think one recurring piece in all these that we're talking about, you know, our beach reads, our romance versus our thriller, they all kind of have a very similar structure.
Yes.
Like it's, you know, you kind of know what you're getting into.
Yeah, well, we were chatting about this a little bit before, right? Like much of the time it's like the ones that I guess stand out and that a lot of people are like gravitate towards are the ones with specific types of situations and certain tropes to an extent. A lot of the time there's a very isolated setting. So we've all gone to this one specific place outside of like the norm of a city or something for like a wedding or for a special event or for a reunion of some sort. They like to do a family reunion or friends reunion where something goes wrong at some point too, which that I think is very taken from like Agatha Christie. Like, and then there were none. You stick people on an island, you stick them in an isolated setting where they can't easily communicate with the outside, like with the rest of the world, and get help for what's going on. It's real easy to start killing people at that point.
And then it inevitably becomes the main character or a group of the main characters like responsibility to figure out who's doing this. So it turns into a whodunit.
And you have, it's good because you know that you basically have a limited number of suspects because there's a limited cast of characters who are there. So it couldn't be like, you know, if you're in New York, you're like, I don't fucking know.
Could be anybody.
It could be anyone on the island of Manhattan. Like I have no idea.
Caught Zodiac. Like that wasn't in New York City, but I'm just.
I know what you mean, though.
You know what I mean. You know, like the realm is too big of possibilities.
Massive, absolutely massive. So I think that, you know, isolating your characters is something that happens a lot. So that will happen oftentimes.
Sometimes it takes place on the beach.
Sometimes it takes place on the beach, 100%. There's also very often, I find anyway, I don't know if you agree with me here, an element of when they do something like that and you've got a certain cast of characters, they either all know each other or someone knows someone and is lying about it kind of thing. Or there's tension that other people aren't aware of between certain characters. There's past beef. There's past issues from something.
It's true. That does come up a lot because as like the story's unfolding, they're looking for motive, right?
Yes.
Like again, inevitably within that contained group of people who now have to figure out who the killer is, they then start trying to figure out what the motive might be amongst themselves. And of course, to make it interesting, then it starts becoming like a big 7-layer dip of like everybody has their own motives.
A 7-layer dip of murder motives.
Motives. And, you know, and you're just kind of like, okay, so who has the most motive?
Yes. Who has the best motive and who had the most opportunity to do something like this?
And you see that like in a lot of, I find that this is becoming like more popular in a lot of movies now, like these quirky ones, like Glass Onion, that was one of them.
Yes, true. On an island.
On an island, I think White Lotus is very much like this.
White Lotus is because it's very relegated to the resort, basically, and the characters at the resort and what's going on there.
Yeah. And then There was another one that was.
There's one called The Resort that came out, I think, last year that was also had that kind of vibe. I know there's I haven't watched it, but there's
Bodies was another.
Bodies is funny, guys.
That was a great movie. I don't like horror, and this was fantastic.
It was very funny. Yeah, that's a fun one. Even what's that other one that was on Amazon Prime? 9 Perfect Strangers, which I know is also based on a book by, I think, Leanne Moriarty.
I don't think I've seen that.
Nicole Kidman and stuff. Anyway, people who go, it's like resort horror is becoming like a bit of a thing because again, you're segregating people away from their usual space that they're comfortable with and where they know what they're doing.
And it makes sense for this to be a beach read, right?
100% because you're also out of your norm.
Yeah, exactly. You're not at home.
No.
And so it's like, I guess then it begs the question of like, are we a little masochistic here? Because it's like, I'm on a beach, I'm at a resort, and now I'm
reading about something terrible happening to someone at a resort.
And so it's like, but yet we do. And like, again, like I personally am not the most, the biggest on horror. And I think that's why I like Harlan Coben, because it's not as much of a moida thing. It's more of a mystery of like, how did this person disappear? And then how do we get them back?
How do we get them back? All those kinds of things. I think, if you step away from that, I do find the other most common one that you see is something to do with like suburbia. Where, like, an idyllic family is not quite what they seem.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
That's the other one. Yeah. And would you bring that as a beach read?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. In certain cases, I definitely would. Like, if you're thinking of something like Girl on the Train.
Oh, yes, you're right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, or Gone Girl.
Like those kinds of things. Those are 100%. Right. I think that falls into your thriller category and definitely your beach read category as well.
And also, like, that, again, I think what we keep coming back to is that, like, self-contained in a story.
Yes, again,
that's it. The nice bow at the end.
It's not to do with some, like, anybody anywhere, like, who could be doing this. No, it's to do with, like, oh, this is happening and I think one of my neighbors is doing it kind of thing. And I mean, like, they've done that, like, to death in adaptations, and they've even done it in like a parody, because wasn't it like the girl in the window across the street from the something
person in the window,
or something
whatever,
like the one with Kristen Bell.
Yeah. But then there was the one with Amy Adams, which was the girl in the window across the way or something.
I think it's the girl in the window,
and then the other one is the other. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, well, because Kristen Bell's is like kind of a half semi-satire parody of several of those types of books and of adaptations all together, basically. But yeah, I'd say you're either isolating people in a new setting that they're not used to, or you're isolating them in their own, like, I don't even know if I can go outside my own house because there's someone in my neighborhood doing something shady.
And now there's someone in my house.
Yeah. You get a little bit of both, but yeah, see, that's what I mean. Like, I would, like, something like Girl on the Train is 100% something I would bring on vacation with me. Like, that would be the type of thing that you're like, that's easy to read. And I think even Harlan Coben has stuff like that as well, where it's like, oh, in this neighborhood, there's weird stuff going on.
He's got such a variety of different things. Like, that's why I couldn't choose another one.
Yeah.
Last time I was looking at the shelf,
there are too many. The plots are blending together. Yeah, exactly. I don't know which one I've read the back of now.
Exactly. Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. But they're just... That it's true. The vast majority of them, that's it. They don't have sequels. You don't have to do any world building. No. You don't have to set up anything super intense. You set up a situation that is occurring for these specific characters that we've established. There is a beginning.
Quite good at establishing the characters
very quickly.
Which, like, again, it goes back to what I was saying about like the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo a moment ago. It's like, I don't know why I don't feel very much about these characters, because we could have really established the characters, you know what I mean? And like, they do a good job of establishing them, but I just personally am not like, meh.
Sometimes I find that what happens if I'm reading something or watching something that I've noticed is that when I have the most trouble is when there are no characters in a story that I feel that I relate to on any level.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
I think it can be difficult, and that means that, like, chances are someone else who reads the exact same book will relate to these characters, because everyone is different and everyone's had different experiences.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
And I think that might have something to do with it. You know what I mean? Because like, that's it. If you're like, oh, all these people have been through these sort of things and I've never been through anything like this in my entire life.
True.
And I don't think if I did that I would even react to it this way, then I feel like I'm separated from this novel, because I just feel like I can't. find anything to relate to.
And I think you're right, because if you read these, like the ones that we're talking about as a beach read, like a thriller, they are very relatable characters.
Usually,
like, it's
yes. Because they're usually like, I'm a bit of a mess.
I'm a bit of a mess.
They're usually, I mean, like,
I'm
okay,
a woman.
I'm not a raging alcoholic, but at the same time, like,
you can understand why they got to that point.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, you know, like in a lot of cases, a lot of the characters are female.
Yeah.
And in many of those cases, they're women who have, had negative experiences and are still dealing with or reeling from said experiences and trying to find ways to move forward. And I do think that by the time you reach a certain age, most of us have experienced certain things in life where as women, we can relate to other women, even if we've never experienced certain things directly, we can relate to other women about what has like these sorts of things that have occurred.
Yeah. And like some of these authors do a really good job of like, it's always like, you know, the first love and like how there was like a real, you know, abrupt end to the relationship and now it's coming back to haunt them like years later. Like I think many of us can kind of relate to that too.
Yeah, because a lot of us, of course, a lot of us get out of relationships and don't have any proper closure in that relationship or things like that at some point or another in our lives. So no matter like, you know, with like first partners, with specific partners somewhere down the road, whatever the situation is. So yeah, I think that might have something to do with it. And I think that the ones that succeed the best are the ones that have these characters that you can find some sort of relatability with.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. We love a thriller.
We do love
We love a thriller for the beach.
We do. I mean, I'm really getting into it now. Again, I'm not like there for the horror aspect, but I do like a good thriller for the beach.
It's just like the right kind of read to have. Yeah. Anyway, do you guys like to bring thrillers to the beach, or are you like the complete opposite of us and you're like, no, fuck that, I'm bringing Lord of the Rings with me to the beach? Like, I don't know.
Wow. I think I tried that once.
It must have felt weird.
Did not work.
No way.
I couldn't get into it.
I don't blame you. So anyway, you can let us know about that over on Instagram at fullybookedca, and you can also check out our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/bookwaswaybetter. And if you are still here with us, which I hope you are, please feel free to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening, because it really helps us get the episodes out in front of more people. But until next week, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.